All right, let's move on. Let's knock out the independents. And I am hilariously going to make a case for Umass over 1.5 wins. And I laid minus 150 to do so.
So really, for those of you that are listening to this on a podcast, Stuckey is doing this podcast in a Umass t-shirt. And I am sure that the gift store that sells these t-shirts said, holy shit, an order for a Umass t-shirt to Kentucky? Let's ship it immediately. Day one, priority.
It did come quick. So I actually think that there's some reasons for optimism in Amherst. Now, this is still a bottom 10 team. They still stink, right? But I don't think that they're the worst one or two teams in the country. They're not the worst. The worst, I think, clearly is New Mexico State, who got blown out by Tarleton State in the spring. But UMass actually finally has some depth. 2 years ago, in Walt Bell's first year, they only had 75 guys in camp. This camp, and then they had a shortened 2020 season. They weren't going to play, and then they added 4 unwinnable road games. I think they only scored 12 total points. They got outscored by, I think, 100 total. It was a terrible year. They scored 1 offensive touchdown. But this year, they played 4 top 25 defenses all on the road. They weren't going to win any of those games. But they finally have some depth. They have 110 guys in camp. They might finally have a quarterback as well. In the past 2 seasons, Walt Bell's first 2 seasons, they used 7 different quarterbacks, and they went 1-15. That one win was a home win over Akron. This year, they bring in Tyler Lytle from Colorado. I think he was an ESPN 4-star prospect. He's the most talented quarterback they've had in quite some time. So they might finally have some stability at quarterback with Tyler Lytle. And I like some of the transfers they brought in, specifically at offensive tackle and in the secondary, that I think will help. And the most important thing is, look, the team still stinks, but they have 4 winnable games on the schedule. I mean, let's look at the schedule. They play UConn at home. Very winnable. UConn didn't even play last year, didn't even play in the spring. They play Rhode Island and Maine at home. Both winnable. Mm-hmm. Rhode Island and Maine, for reference, were picked, I think, 6th and 9th in the CAA. And then a 4th winnable game is at New Mexico State. So they have 3 winnable home games against UConn, against Maine, and against Rhode Island. And then they finish up the year at New Mexico State, who I think is the worst team in the country. The best part about that, not only do they have 4 winnable games, they all come after week 6. So this is a team I think is improving. So now that, they get into the season, they're going to get blown out. As long as they don't take too many injuries early on, I think at the minimum, they're getting the 2 wins. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 3 games. I think that there's value in over 1.5 minus 150. Give me UMass over as my favorite and only independence bet. Thoughts? And what do you got in independence for us?
Yeah, I think it depends on the market number that you're going to get. I mean, I'm staring at over 1.5 minus 160. It'd be nice to get 1.5 with least amount of juice. But hey, you called out the games that are absolutely winnable here. And that's a problem for a lot of these college football teams, especially in the group of 5, is building depth. The transfer portal has created a way for the Oklahomas and the Ohio States of the world where if they don't have any depth at right guard, they can go out and get a 3rd stringer. And it's also created sort of a place for people that don't get a starting spot in the Power 5 to fall down to the group of 5 teams and find some playing time. Having playing time actually matters to a lot of kids. And that's what Walt Bell needed to do. He needed to clean house. He's cycled through a defensive coordinator already. Some of the players that were on the roster when he first got there, not really happy with the hire, not really happy with how much he dogs them in practice. I mean, working them, full pads the entire week. There were some message boards lighting up about his treatment of the players. And the fact is you're just not going to get UMass to a level if you just continue to treat the program as a joke, which Walt Bell is not. So you look at those games that Stuck mentioned. UConn projected to make a pick. Later in the year, Rhode Island, I project UMass to be minus 10. Against Maine, the Black Bears, minus 23 for UMass. That's crazy to think they can cover a spread that big, but that you mentioned where Rhode Island and Maine are projected in their own conference. And then New Mexico State, right now, that's projected at minus 4 for UMass on the road. We don't really know what we're going to get down there with the Aggies, but there are chances here.
And we don't know where UConn will be after missing a whole year.
We don't. And there is a chance that this team, UMass, can win 4 games. So I would actually suggest maybe finding a 2 and maybe finding juice on an over There's plenty of options here to hedge because these games, Rhode Island, Maine, New Mexico State, they happen at the end of the year. If you happen to pull one off against Eastern Michigan, who could lose a game against UMass, it's not completely out of the question, then you're rolling. So I would actually skip the 1.5 in the juice. I'd go find a 2, maybe find some plus money. I think I'm going to join you. If you're going to put this in the app and you find a good number, let's both do it together. Let's like UMass, the team of the year, the junk team that we like to support. It was UTEP for a long time. Picks up. They're solid now. They can win at least 3 games. We're out of their backyard. It's on to UMass, baby.
Don't make me regret this shirt purchase. This will be a fun bet to sweat all year.
The militia.
Colin, and it's a good win total. I like. It's not like just 1 or 2 games I'm relying on. It's like 4 games. I think that they can win 2 of them. All right, so I'm going UMass and Independence. I think you're going to sell Notre Dame. Where are you going with Independence?
Yeah, I'm definitely selling Notre Dame. I think one of the first pieces I wrote this year was under 9 on Notre Dame for a ton of reasons. Clark Lee leaving as defensive coordinator. And, go download the favorites, Chad's podcast, Chad Millman, our fearless leader. And I talked plenty about Notre Dame and the under there. 8.5 still in the market. I think it's good down to 8. So I would definitely hit the under. Liberty, I don't even know what to do with Liberty. This whole idea that they could be undefeated going into Ole Miss, Hugh Freeze going into play, Lane Kiffin it gets me excited. Like we're the first couple of weeks of August and I'm getting excited. Like I want to run through the house thinking about Hugh Freeze going back to Oxford, Mississippi, and how many burner phones he'll have on him. Will he be in a bed? Will he be in a bed or in Yeah, wheel him on in. So Liberty 93% returning production and transfer portal activity on the offensive side, led by Malik Willis, one of the best quarterbacks, not just a group of 5, of all of college football. The defense returns 83%, top 50 in success rate. They really locked down in the red zone. They were 23rd in defensive finishing drives. That's limiting points for opponents past the 40-yard line. I think Liberty goes into Ole Miss undefeated. So do what you want with that win total. I've got it at 9.3. They're legit this year. For all intents and purposes, I think I'm staying away from Army. The defensive numbers, it's a really hard team to grasp because success rate doesn't apply to Army. And the reason is because success rate is bound to being at 2nd and 7 and 3rd and 4. But there's a huge uptick in college football right now to go for it on 4th down. Army started this trend a really long time ago. There are other head coaches that are catching on that have made the decision that 4th and 4 and 4th and 3 are downs where you're just going to go for it no matter what your field position is. And so success rate doesn't really apply to Army because they're on a different clock. They're on a different schedule when it comes to moving the chains. I've got them, at 8.3 so far, a no play here. I don't.
Yeah, returning production means nothing for these service academies. You never really know. It's hard to project. You'll see in the first couple games, even if they lose 5 offensive linemen, they could have 5 offensive linemen come in and then they're ready to roll. Replacing the backs. Usually they can just I tend to stay away from all service academy win totals.
Yeah, I agree. And then the last one I'll mention on the independent scene, I'm not jumping on this whole BYU, they don't return anything. Zach Wilson's gone. All the weapons are gone. The Romney kid is, everybody's gone and the defense is gone. Listen, I'm not going to go down that path. To me, it's narrative street in the year of super senior to say, well, they lost everything, so they're going to suck. That's not necessarily true. I mean, Sataki is a great coach. The problem that I have with BYU, and remember the age of the kids on this roster. They're not fresh-faced, non-shaving 18-year-olds on this roster. They're going to be fine. The problem that I have with BYU is losing offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes. He was responsible for a lot of the things that have been going on with Zach Wilson. That perfect potato bowl that he even threw a couple years ago was architected by Jeff Grimes. He's gone now as offensive coordinator. And that makes me want to take a lot of first half unders and individual games on BYU. So rather than play the total on them, you can expect to be hearing me on the podcast saying BYU's playing. I think I'm going to play a first half under on the total because I don't think this is going to be the same offense that we've seen the last couple of years. It's under new management. And Sataki's a defensive coach anyways. He does a great job there. So that's it for the independents.
Yeah, I'm pretty close on all the numbers outside of UMass. Notre Dame, I'm actually pretty close on. And I know that you love Clark Lee. I actually love Marcus Freeman. So
how does that help now?
There is.
We're moving.
We'll see. It's going to be tough, and we'll see what he can cook up and how quickly he can transition that defense. I have more questions about the Notre Dame quarterback situation, but I'm pretty close. Odd number there.